Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
We're back with Democratic Congresswoman Val Demings on the Judiciary and Intelligence Committee. She was the House impeachment manager in that Senate trial of Donald Trump. Thanks for making the time for us.
It's good to be with you, Ari.
Your reaction to this latest firing, and do you see a pattern that is illegitimate?
Well, let me start here. You know, Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them. And President Trump, and it looks like even long before he occupied the White House, has zero interest in transparency or oversight. We're talking about a president who believes that if he fires the person in charge of oversight, then there's no scandal. We're talking about a person who, just like he's indicated several times, if we don't do testing for COVID-19, then maybe 2 million people in this country will not contract COVID-19. The Senate had their opportunity during the impeachment trial to hold Donald Trump accountable and perhaps avoid a lot of that what we're seeing right now. But they either didn't have the political will, the courage, or the backbone to hold him accountable. And so here we are. Yet another watchdog has been fired for doing his job, faithfully performing and executing the duties of his job, which is simply disgraceful.
What can Congress do about it?
Well, you know what? What a time we are having in Congress. Obviously, the president has zero respect or recognition for equal branches of government, that one government is designed to check the other branch, but we will continue to do the necessary oversight. This is one of the top issues that we have been engaged in discussions about today, and actually since he tried to bury this story on Friday evening. And we are going to continue to find ways, as we always do, to get around the president's total disregard for the law and disregard for the office in which he holds.
The president has a larger pattern than even beyond the watchdogs. Of course, he has welcomed and embraced the watchdogs who have issued reports that have been critical. There was an IG report we covered extensively that found some problems, for example, in how James Comey performed. The president liked that because apparently, by his own admission, he views this as a chance to weaponize the system of government against people, his opponents, and then wants to use it for his loyalists and will remove those who don't go along with it. It's the opposite of, as mentioned, the legal requirements of the watchdog. I want to play Attorney General Barr responding to something else Donald Trump has been doing. The watchdogs generally don't deal with prosecution. They deal, as you know, but reminding our viewers, with oversight. Then there's the larger question of what you impeach the president for, the view that he was trying to pursue potentially criminal investigations of the Bidens. This has come back up with regard to Biden and Obama. Here was Attorney General Barr speaking on this. Take a look.
As to President Obama and Vice President Biden, whatever their level of involvement, based on the information I have today, I don't expect Mr. Durham's work will lead to a criminal investigation of either man. Our concern over potential criminality is focused on others.
I haven't had a chance to cover this yet, so I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell viewers what I think, and then I'm very curious what you think. I think this is the classic lawyerly, legalistic, sneaky way of pretending you're doing something by the book, because Mr. Barr is saying, hey, we're not going there, while also, with no evidence, no reason, no rationality, throwing dirt on Biden, who happens to be, of course, running for president, and Barack Obama, who we know Donald Trump has issues with. Donald Trump's had several advisors convicted, pled guilty, the rest. Barack Obama didn't. So for the attorney general appointed by Trump to walk around saying, hey, Obama's not corrupt, hey, if you think Obama's corrupt, we're not going to put Obama in jail, that strikes to me like really backwards. I'm curious what you think. Do you think this statement is on the level, or do you think Bill Barr is doing some sort of political thing? Your views on all of it.
Well, Attorney General Barr has had several opportunities to act like an Attorney General. Remember, we were talking about the same man who came out with a summary of Bob Mueller's report that really had nothing to do with the report. It was designed to really deceive the American public. And look, Ari, it reminds me of smoke and mirrors. That's absolutely correct. I'll stand at the podium as the Attorney General and say, well, there's nothing to see here, while at the same time he is allowing the president to carry that narrative and others to carry that narrative. Remember, even in the Biden case, the president was not interested in an actual investigation. Right. It was just the announcement, remember, of the investigation, because if you can spin that story, the damage is done. And so I think, once again, Attorney General Barr is trying to deflect our attention while the president continues to undermine our country, undermine our nation, and continue to try to throw dirt on the previous administration and not effectively deal with what's right in front of him, the coronavirus.
It is Tuesday, the 19th of May of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A small scant dash, a mere pinch of smoked hot Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world, and it does. Oh boy, apparently Trump is taking an anti-malarial drug because he doesn't really want to talk about that secret Saudi arms deal that Pompeo and he are putting together, so that Al-Qaeda operatives can come to the United States and shoot up military bases and kill our military personnel. Fire the IG who stumbled on that little scam. So, everybody's talking about Trump taking hydrochloroxyquin. I call it hydro. Anyway, I don't believe he's taking it. And if he does, it would actually explain the hallucinatory nature of his pronouncements. Because that is one of the side effects of hydro, don't you know? So, apparently he says some doctor somewhere, he doesn't know who, can't remember his name, said, take it. Take it. Some people are presuming it might be Jared's doctor, the one who's been pushing hydro all along. What if we find out that Jared's doctor is a plant from a hostile foreign government and they want to take out our president? I know it's Trump, but it's still our president. We don't want a hostile foreign power doing that. We want to get rid of him on our own. We don't want any convenient help from Vlad in that issue. No. But it does make one wonder if Trump is not going to listen to the experts, because the expert class are all Democrats, apparently. That's what he said. Anybody telling you not to drink bleach must be a Democrat. A doctor who tells you not to drink bleach is a Democrat. That might be so. It just might be. That doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that the Republican Party is pretty much part of a cult. And we've been talking about that for quite some time, usually in a kind of hyperbolic way. Now it is not so much hyperbole, it is becoming more and more to be fact. Which reminds me, the Trump campaign put up a webpage called Truth Over Facts. That makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it? Because the truth is fungible. Now, facts could be fungible if you were able to get rid of your data scientists like they do in Georgia and Florida, because they don't want to fudge the numbers. Yeah, well, I guess you can fudge facts then. But truth over facts, that says it all. That really says it all. That is propaganda. They are just not even hiding it anymore. Oh my, oh my. Trump will not hoist the portrait of Obama. Now, I heard some news stories that Obama's not going to show up for the unveiling of the presidential portrait. See, a presidential portrait is always unveiled by the next administration. They unveil the preceding administration's portrait of the president. Well, that's not going to happen this year. Now, I've heard, like as I mentioned, I heard some news stories that Obama will not go to the unveiling of his portrait while Trump is president. And then I've also heard stories that Trump is not going to unveil that portrait because it's Obama. And he hates him. He wants Obama lynched. And I'm not kidding. If he could do it, he would get it done. I'm sure there are quite a few White House aides that are, I hope, are telling him that, lynching Obama might be a bad idea in an election year. So, what do we make of all this? Is democracy dead? I don't know. I mean, you have Georgia canceling an election because Kemp wants to appoint the Supreme Court justice, not have them voted in, because those damn voters, when they vote, and when they're allowed to vote, they tend to not vote for authoritarian dictatorships. Isn't that weird? In a representative democracy, these liberal snowflakes don't want an authoritarian dictatorship. Boy, they must hate America, don't they? Everything is topsy-turvy. I had to put up with being called a liberal commie snowflake because I refuted some disinformation about the virus. There is, here in the Southern Oregon Facebook pages, I can't speak to those outside of the region since I'm not there, but I am here, so I'll speak to them. And I have to presume, since it's been my experience, that this same dynamic is being put forth across the Facebook platform, like it always is. Isn't it weird? Anyway, there's this COVID conspiracy theory that actually arose when it first came out. It's not some weird, new virus. It's more like the flu. And it's actually not even the flu, it's pneumonia. And then they say antibiotics cure it, not ventilators. Well, right there, I mean, first of all, antibiotics don't cure viruses. They cure bacteria. And ventilators cure nothing. They assist in breathing. So by merely mentioning those facts, I was called a liberal commie snowflake. I'm a liberal commie for believing antibiotics don't kill viruses because truth over facts. Their truth says antibiotics kill viruses. And ventilators, they were supposed to cure the COVID, but they don't cure the COVID. Ventilators don't cure anything. They assist your breathing, And in this case with COVID-19, they assist your breathing hopefully long enough that you can come out of this affliction. The ventilator's not curing anything. You're not able to get enough oxygen into your blood cells. That's what the ventilator does for you. That's not curing. That's keeping you breathing for a while. That's not a cure. But state those facts, and the truth will overcome. Apparently their truth. So, of course, by simply stating the facts that antibiotics do not do anything to viruses, I'm the disruptor. I'm so divisive. Why don't I just go along? Because I'm not part of a cult, that's why. Oh my, what else do we have here curated for you in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Well, Val Demings, of course, was at the top of the RE. Pretty much showing how the virus purge backfires as Congress zeroes in on those watchdogs that have been fired. Saudi arms sales in secret. Yeah, that's not having some staffer walk a dog. Though walking the dog is sort of wagging the dog too, isn't it? Interesting. Barr says he does not envision investigations of Biden and Obama. Of course, he dreams about it maybe, but never envisions it. The GOP is recruiting 50,000 volunteers to intimidate voters they deem suspicious at the polls. You think that would be illegal, and it is. And details are scant in who got what in small business relief from Trump's $600 billion plus virus relief program. Yeah, we have some Trump-loving businesses here in town who are so upset at the Democratic governor because they didn't get their small business loan. It doesn't come from the state, first of all, okay? And I keep reminding them, you know, Applebee's and Shake Shack got your restaurant virus relief, all right? Get a clue. That's Trump's fault. They don't believe it. I'm a liberal commie for bringing it up. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Trump threatened a permanent freeze on funds to the World Health Organization and withdrawing membership from the world body unless they bend to his every whim, no matter how irrational. And Australia is disappointed by China's barley tariffs. Of course, barley goes into beer. Want some Fosters? All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon site. And I hate sounding like a broken record, but at least we don't do a fund drive every day, all day. Like, I don't know, some organizations that we all love. Well, anyway, we do it every day, at least during this part of this show, and it's done because, well, without your help, we would not be able to pay our bills, even though the bulk of what we do here comes out of our own wallets. Your generosity has kept this powerhouse of resistance resisting for over 9 years, going on 10. Isn't that something? Thank you for your generosity in allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended. Oh, so many eons ago. Eons. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and we thank Tom. I, of course, take care of at Justice Putnam, and I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get that linked up on social media because, hey, that's what we do. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at CookbookWest, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, hey, wherever podcasts can be found. Where am I? Okay, let's dive into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and it comes out of the Associated Press, penned by Eric Tucker. Attorney General William Barr said yesterday, that he did not expect an investigation into the origins of the FBI's Russia investigation to lead to criminal probes of either President Barack Obama, the former president, and his opponent, and he being Donald Trump's opponent, Joe Biden. Trump has stated without evidence that he believes Obama committed unspecified crimes as president, because that's supposed to overcome all of the specified crimes that Trump has been committing right in front of our faces. And he's been repeatedly tweeting Obamagate. The claims have become a rallying cry among Trump supporters, while Democrats view it as a desperate attempt to shift the focus from the president's handling of the coronavirus outbreak and the nation's soaring unemployment. Well, some Democratic types like me consider it to be a idiotic joke. Obamagate? Do you really want to go there, Donnie? Do you? Barr, speaking Monday at an unrelated news conference and responding to a question about Trump's allegations, insisted that the Justice Department, this is what's so funny, would not be swayed by political pressure to investigate the president's opponents, and that the criminal justice system will not be used for partisan political ends. Really now? So why are you going after Strzok and Lisa Page? Huh? Why? I think you'd go after Christopher Wray if you could, even though he has been kind of towing the line the last few days here. Barr's comments come as Democrats and some former law enforcement officials have accused the Attorney General of politicizing decisions and doing Trump's bidding at the Justice Department. That criticism was stepped up 2 weeks ago when the department moved to dismiss charges against Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, who had pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. We live in a very divided country right now, and I think that it is critical that we have an election where the American people are allowed to make a decision, a choice between President Trump and Vice President Biden based on a robust debate of policy issues, Barr said, without laughing, too. The guy's really good. And we cannot allow this process to be hijacked by efforts to drum up criminal investigations of either candidate. Well, if you put that through the Trump translator, it sounds to me like there are criminal investigations in both Obama and Biden. Now, Barr repeated his belief that what happened to the president as a result of the FBI's investigation into whether his 2016 campaign conspired with Russia was abhorrent and a grave injustice. So he has appointed John Durham, a lackey working at the U.S. Attorney for Connecticut, to investigate whether crimes were committed as intelligence and law enforcement officials examined Russian election interference. Well, I'll tell you there were crimes committed by the GOP taking mob money from Russians. Like, how about Moscow Mitch McConnell in Kentucky with Deripaska? What about that? Or how about all that NRA money that was floated out to every single GOP member? And where did the NRA get their money? Yeah, right from Vlad. Those are the crimes Durham should be looking into, not whether the FBI and our intelligence community was investigating those crimes. If you are caught talking to a mobster on the phone when that mobster's phone is tapped, That is not an unconstitutional infringement upon your rights. You got caught in a crime. Durish of Ceylon, by way of Raw Story, brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. The Republican Party, driven by Trump's baseless allegations of widespread voter fraud, which have been repeatedly debunked, plans to mount an aggressive effort to shape, quote, whose ballots are counted, end quote, by recruiting an army of 50,000 volunteers across 15 key states to challenge voters deemed suspicious. You know, that sounds like voter intimidation, which is patently illegal, but not during the Trump age, of course. The Republican Party and Trump's allies also plan to mount a large advertising campaign to cast Democrats as agents of election theft. Yeah, because when you had Russian help to get you installed in the Oval Office, anything that will remove you by way of the democratic process is definitely election theft. Of course it is. Now, these volunteers, of course, we know they're pretty die-hard. I think that if you look in the small print, that they're really asking their volunteers that, you know, if you're able to break down a .50 caliber and reassemble it, though it's not required, for intimidation purposes, it would be helpful. Brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A small overlooked federal agency is shouldering a massive relief effort for the nation's small businesses, and their workers are left reeling by the pandemic. The Small Business Administration has committed to auditing every sizable emergency loan it approves, but 6 weeks after the $600 billion plus program was launched, the agency has yet to make public the recipients of taxpayer aid. A signature piece of Congress's multi-trillion-dollar pandemic rescue, the unprecedented lending program is targeted to help small employers stay afloat and preserve jobs in a cratering economy, losing tens of millions of them. Well, we're looking at about 40 million so far. Our swift action supported or saved 30 million American jobs at least, Trump said at a White House event on small businesses late last month with Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and SBA Administrator Jovita Carranza. Managing the program fell to the SBA, an agency with some 3,200 employees and an $819 million annual budget. That's 1/10 the size of the Commerce Department's budget. On at least 2 occasions last month, the Small Business Administration's computer system slowed under the crush of loan applications, creating a bottleneck. The agency says it has processed $4.2 million loans for some $530 billion in awards. Well, I guess it went to Applebee's and Shake Shack. You know, when you're overwhelmed and your phones are crashed and your computer is crashed, I guess you're just going to have to give the money to the people you know and who know you the best. The need for a detailed public accounting of the Small Business Relief Program is amplified by controversy over how it has unfolded since early April. It's important as a way for the public to know whether the program is working as Congress intended. Well, obviously, in the age of Trump, that makes you an enemy of the state. You want to know how Trump is handing out money to his cronies? What do you think this is? A democracy? Of course it's not. All right, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Bomb. News and talk show producers all have lists of folks they can call for a reliable point of view. Michael Moore, who's the executive producer of the controversial new movie Planet of the Humans, may well have gotten himself removed from those lists with his new film, in which he dares posit that green energy isn't as green as you think, and further, that the current iteration of global capitalism, now all in on green energy, isn't going to save us. Director Jeff Gibbs and his GoPro record the diesel generators powering green events on cloudy days and acres of abandoned solar and other alternative energy equipment. And some of environmentalism's biggest stars, Al Gore and Bill McKibben, to name a couple, are cast as having been co-opted. How Moore and Gibbs feel about this is obvious. Why they feel that way, though, maybe not so much. If the existing capitalist order is permanent and unassailable, is it not in environmentalists' interest to have the capitalists on board? Maybe so, but in the view presented here, the combination of environmental impacts of corporate green energy writ large, the middle-class aspirations of billions, let alone those unborn, don't provide for a sustainable future. In Trumpland, Moore stood before a red-state crowd with a chalkboard and showed how tax increases to pay for single-payer health care would actually save people money. Planet of the Humans could have benefited from this technique. Crunching the numbers would have shown the comparative benefits of green energy, which gets short shrift here, but more importantly, perhaps, illustrated the point that without changes far more radical than using solar panels, humankind is, well, like the title suggests. So goodbye, Michael Moore, reliable progressive, hello, or maybe it's welcome back, Michael Moore, bomb thrower. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Jason Goldman. Robin Hood famously stole from the rich and gave to the poor. Young, newly hatched barn owls do something similar. On average, barn owls raise 6 chicks at once, and sometimes as many as 9. But they don't all hatch at the same time, which means the older owlets are generally larger and healthier than their younger brothers and sisters. As long as the little owls remain in the nest, they're completely dependent on their parents for food. The problem is that the small rodents they eat can't be split up. So when mom or dad returns to the nest to feed their offspring, only one chick can eat at a time. In many bird species, the oldest would simply outcompete the youngest. But barn owls are different. Turns out the older, healthier birds sometimes donate their meals to their hungrier siblings. Adults in other animal species share their food.
It's mainly observed when males want to reproduce with females, so there is many exchange of food. Or in primates, there is many exchange between food and grooming, but only in adults.
Evolutionary biologist Pauline Ducoret from the University of Lausanne in Switzerland.
And in chicks, it's really rarely observed. So it's quite impressive that in this species, there is so many cooperative behaviors.
She and her team wanted to know how this unique behavior evolved. It could be explained by the direct benefits gained through cooperation, such as trading food for grooming. Or it could be explained by the indirect benefits gained from helping others that share your genetic heritage, also known as kin selection. They found that the answer was both. Younger birds groomed older ones more often than older ones groomed the youngsters. And in return, the older birds fed their younger siblings. In addition, older owlets preferentially offered food to their hungriest siblings, even in the absence of grooming. But food sharing only happened when the researchers artificially provisioned the owlets with extra food. So it's not that the owls risked their own survival to help their siblings. But when there was more than enough to go around, they shared instead of hoarding. The results are in the journal The American Naturalist. Ducoret says that evolutionary biologists usually characterize sibling relationships as competitive or even antagonistic. But remarkably complex examples of cooperation can still be found among animal brothers and sisters. Seems that even newly hatched barn owls know that sharing is caring. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Jason Goldman.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
The discovery of penicillin in 1928 by Alexander Fleming was one of the greatest scientific achievements of the 20th century. It's hard to imagine a world before the development of what many consider to be miracle drugs. However, just 90 years ago, antibiotics weren't available. Thanks to antibiotics, some common illnesses such as strep throat are now easily treated, whereas in the past they often led to serious complications. Antibiotics serve an important role in keeping you and your loved ones healthy, but it's important to remember that antibiotics only treat bacterial infections. Most common infections such as colds, flu, most sore throats, bronchitis, and many sinus and ear infections are caused by viruses and do not respond to antibiotic treatment. These infections can be overcome by simply treating the symptoms and letting the illness run its course. Unfortunately, antibiotics have often been overused, resulting in decreased effectiveness and an increase in antibiotic-resistant diseases. Antibiotic resistance, or the increased ability of bacteria to survive in the presence of antibiotics, has become a major public health threat that we all need to help fight. When a person takes antibiotics, they are at risk for possibly having a bad reaction to these drugs. Some side effects can be quite serious, or even life-threatening in the case of an allergic reaction or severe diarrhea. This is why it is very important to only use antibiotics when they are absolutely needed, and not for viral infections. Talk to your healthcare professional about the best treatment for your illness. If it is caused by a virus, follow his or her recommendation for treating the symptoms. Learn more about appropriate antibiotic use and how to feel better when you don't need an antibiotic by visiting CDC's Get Smart, Know When Antibiotics Work website at cdc.gov/getsmart/community.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1989. That was the day that black author and Marxist theorist C.L.R. James passed away. James was born in Trinidad, at the time a Caribbean colony that was part of the British Empire. His father was a school teacher. James became a leading intellectual on the subject of black liberation. His most famous work, The Black Jacobins, tells the story of the 1791 Haitian Revolution, when enslaved black Haitians successfully overthrew French colonial rule. James was a frequent contributor to Labor Action, a Marxist journal produced in New York from 1940 to 1958. He wrote about the struggles of black workers. He often penned fiery language. For example, in 1941, James wrote an article imploring black workers not to cross the picket line during a strike against the Ford Motor Company in Detroit. Ford had a reputation of hiring black workers at a time when many employers discriminated in their employment practices. But James warned his readers that the Ford Company was no friend to the worker and that the company was attempting to use race to keep its workforce divided. James wrote, quote, "Ford is one of the most dangerous enemies of labor who exist in this country. This enemy of society has been laying a train of race hatred in Detroit and is now about to touch it off. The organized working class movement and the Negroes will have to fight hard and long to check and frustrate and defeat this sinister plot. This will be no easy fight." In other articles, James also used his pen to call out labor unions for not including black workers and to call for the unification of black and white workers in their struggle. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
As the nation is reeling from the coronavirus crisis, with a rising death toll that has already passed 90,000 and the number of reported cases north of 1.5 million, and the administration just fired the 4th Inspector General in just 6 weeks. Another sign of Trump's efforts to do away with any oversight, he once again floated a giant distraction balloon to change the media narrative.
And you'd be surprised at how many people are taking it, especially the frontline workers, before you catch it. The frontline workers, many are taking it. I happen to be taking it.
Hydroxychloroquine?
I'm taking it. Hydroxychloroquine.
When?
Right now, yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I started taking it.
Yes, the man occupying the Oval Office announced to the world on Monday that, against the advice of his government's experts, he is ingesting hydroxychloroquine.
Can you explain further why you started taking it? Have you been exposed?
Yeah, because no, not at all. I just said that I've had so many letters from people, like the one I told you about. I got it last week. Would you like a copy of it? I'd love to give you. If you ask Molly, she'll give you a copy of it. But this is a doctor. He doesn't want anything. I don't know him, never heard of him. But he treats people that we're talking about. And he said out of hundreds of people that he's treated, he hasn't lost one. And he just wanted me to know about it. That's all. He wasn't saying, gee, could I have dinner with you, Mr. President? I'd like to come to the White House. But I've received many such letters. I've received a lot of positive letters. And it seems to have an impact. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But if it doesn't, you're not going to get sick or die. This is a pill that's been used for a long time, for 30, 40 years, on the malaria and on lupus too, and even on arthritis, I guess, from what I understand. So it's been heavily tested in terms of, I was just waiting to see your eyes light up when I said this, but, when I announced this. But, yeah, I've taken it for about a week and a half now, and I'm still here.
But Donald J. Trump is a pathological liar. So who knows if that's true? The official White House doctor released a letter saying the two of them discussed the risk, but he never explicitly says he prescribed it or that Trump is taking it. On the Fox propaganda channel, Neil Cavuto reacted with the type of horror that statement should invoke.
I want to stress again, they died. If you are in a risky population here and you are taking this as a preventative treatment to ward off the virus, or in a worst case scenario, you are dealing with the virus, and you are in this vulnerable population, it will kill you. I cannot stress enough. This will kill you.
And the medical community piled on as well. The FDA has warned against the use of hydroxychloroquine to treat the coronavirus, saying it should only be used in hospitals or clinical trials because it can kill or cause serious side effects. But Trump accomplished what he probably set out to do: distract the media, and thus the country, from the real story, which is the fact that 91,000 Americans have already died from the U.S.'s botched response to the pandemic. Oh, and this, on Monday night, Trump threatened to permanently end funding to the World Health Organization in a letter criticizing their coronavirus response. True to form, Trump tweeted the letter threatening the end of funding if the group does not, quote, commit to major substantive improvements within the next 30 days. Trump, who has repeatedly accused the World Health Organization of allowing China to initially cover up the novel coronavirus outbreak, said the UN body must actually demonstrate independence from China. Chinese officials on Tuesday said that Trump was attempting to shift blame for his administration's, quote, incompetent response to the pandemic. But that's not all. Let's get back to that story about the firing of the State Department's Inspector General. The Washington Post reporting that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo advised Donald Trump to fire Inspector General Steve Linick because he was, quote, not performing a function that was additive for the State Department. All right. Well, typically, Trump claimed no knowledge of Linick, but said he fired him at Pompeo's request anyway, and that anyone appointed by former President Barack Obama should be fired regardless.
Explain, sir, why you decided to fire the Inspector General at the State Department?
Yeah, I don't know him at all. I never even heard of him, but I was asked to by the State Department, by Mike. I offered most of my people, almost all of them, I said, these are Obama appointees, and if you'd like to let him go, I think you should let him go, but that's up to you. He's an Obama employee. I understand he had a lot of problems with the DOD. There was an investigation on him, on the Inspector General. I don't know anything about it. So I don't know him. Never heard of him, but they asked me to terminate him. I have the absolute right as president to terminate. I said, who appointed him? And they said, President Obama. I said, look, I'll terminate him. I don't know what's going on other than that, but you'd have to ask Mike Pompeo.
And then, when questioned about the allegations that Pompeo was using State Department staff for personal errands, including walking his dog, picking up dry cleaning, and making dinner reservations for he and his wife, who, by the way, travels the world with him at taxpayer expense, Trump gave us this bit of brilliance.
Now I have you telling me about dog walking, washing dishes. And you know what? I'd rather have him on the phone with some world leader than have him wash dishes because maybe his wife isn't there or his kids are there. What are you telling me? It's terrible. It's so stupid. You know how stupid that sounds to the world? Unbelievable.
And you wonder why Trump's support from women is cratering. But there's another investigation Linick was working on that was likely also a reason for his firing. Linick was also investigating U.S. military sales to Saudi Arabia. Congressional Democrats have launched an investigation into Linick's removal. Pompeo said he didn't even know Linick was investigating him. Yeah, right. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. For more information, visit NicoleSandler.com. Look around, and while you're there, please click on that donate button.
you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high in the mid-upper 60s. Cloudy skies early, partly cloudy this afternoon with winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, lows in the mid-40s, partly cloudy with winds continuing out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tomorrow, expecting a high in the low 70s with intervals of clouds and sunshine. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County as of today has risen to 51 cases. No reports on recovery. Deceased is not reported because apparently they don't count that yet. I wonder why. Let's see. Barometric pressure. Well, actually, I'm a little ahead of myself on barometric pressure because the grass pollen outside the mothership, right outside the window, is rated very high. And the air quality index for the whole region is good at 30 parts per million. And that daytime UV index will be very high at 8. So those of you who are under those numbers, do take care. Now, we did have some rain over the last few days, and it is actually drizzling just a little bit right now and should be ending, in about less than an hour, apparently. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.07 inches. Visibility is at 7 miles, and relative humidity is at 90%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 77 degrees and sunny with coronavirus. Paris is 77 degrees and sunny, also with coronavirus. Rome is 74 and fair with coronavirus. Kyiv is 61 and fair, of course, with coronavirus. Kabul, 68 and fair. And they like to be able to have a little bit of a ceasefire with their militaristic behavior because of coronavirus, but nothing will stop that. Of course not. Hong Kong is 78 and partly cloudy, and they got another spike with coronavirus. I wonder why. Tokyo is 58 with a rain shower, and it looks like their economy is tanking because of coronavirus. Sydney, Australia is 60 and mostly cloudy with mostly either trying to open up from coronavirus. San Francisco, California is 54 degrees and partly cloudy with coronavirus. And New York is 64 degrees Fahrenheit, partly cloudy with a lot of coronavirus still. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Donald Trump threatened to permanently halt funding for the World Health Organization if it did not commit to improvements within 30 days, and he's going to consider whether the U.S.'s membership in the agency will continue. Isn't that nice of him? Trump suspended U.S. contributions to the WHO last month, accusing it of promoting Chinese disinformation about the novel coronavirus outbreak, although WHO officials denied the accusation, and China said it was transparent and open. If the WHO does not commit to major substantive improvements within the next 30 days, I will make my temporary freeze of United States funding to the WHO permanent and reconsider our membership. Earlier, Trump said the Geneva-based WHO had done a very sad job in its handling of the coronavirus, which emerged in China late last year, and he would make a decision on funding soon. Of course, if anybody was subject to the disinformation campaign by China, that was Donald Trump. He's the one that echoed that stuff, not the WHO. Trump said in a letter that the only way forward for the WHO was for it to demonstrate independence from China and apparently complete fealty to the United States, and not just the United States, but Trump personally. You know that's how he works. Trump also made various accusations against China in a letter, including that it tried to block evidence the virus could be transmitted between people, pressed the WHO not to declare it an emergency, refused to share data and samples, and denied access to its scientists and facilities. Wait a second. Now, before I go on here, China hit back today. Its foreign ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said the letter was slanderous. Well, let's also remember, Trump was the one that decimated our CDC and World Health Organization representatives in labs in China right before the outbreak, at least before the outbreak was announced. Why was that? Why? The Chinese foreign ministry spokesman said the U.S. leadership's open letter is filled with phrases of suggestions, maybes, and potentialities, and is trying to mislead the public through this specious method to achieve the goal of smearing and slandering China's efforts in epidemic prevention and to shift responsibility in its own incompetence in handling the epidemic. And that is very true, but let's also remember that the scientists in Wuhan who had announced publicly about the virus, he was marginalized by Chinese authorities. He was shut up, he was arrested, and he died from the virus. Let's remember that part too. And who echoed Chinese pronouncements about the virus? Yes, one Donald J. Trump.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous worker bees at The Guardian bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. China has put punitive tariffs on more than 80% of barley imports from Australia as more than 110 countries backed a push for an international coronavirus inquiry. Trade Minister Simon Birmingham indicated Australia may appeal the imposition of a 73.6% anti-dumping tariff and a 6.9% anti-subsidy tariff applied to all Australian barley from yesterday, Tuesday. Australia is deeply disappointed with China's decision to impose duties on Australian barley. We reject the basis of this decision and will be assessing the details of the findings while we consider next steps. We reserve all rights to appeal this matter further and are confident that Australian farmers are among the most productive in the world who operate without government subsidy of prices. Interesting that, isn't it? China's Ministry of Commerce announced the tariffs late on yesterday, after completing a 16-month investigation into anti-dumping complaints. The investigating authority has ruled that there was dumping of imported barley from Australia, and the domestic industry suffered substantial damage because, I guess, people aren't drinking enough beer during the coronavirus epidemic. My. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. And you do know that Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we'll meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.